Did you know the Roman Empire once held away over most of the known world, influencing everything from modern law to architecture? This mighty civilization spanned over a millennium, evolving from a small city-state to a colossal empire that eventually split in two. So what can the dramatic rise and fall of such a dominant power reveal about the empires of today? Well, stick around as we uncover the enduring legacy and lessons of the Roman Empire. The founding of Rome. The story of Rome begins not with grand architecture or battlefield triumphs, but with a tale as old as the city itself. According to legend, the seeds of this future empire were planted by twin brothers Romulus and Remus, raised by a she-wolf in the wild. These brothers eventually found themselves at the heart of a foundational myth that is as dramatic as any episode of political intrigue that would later define Roman history. Romulus and Remus decided to establish a city where the wolf had found and nurtured them. However, a bitter dispute arose over who would rule this new city. In the end, Romulus resolves this argument in a drastic manner. He kills his brother Remus. This act of violence underscored the fierce ambition and brutal resolve that would come to characterize much of Rome's history. Romulus named the city after himself, Rome, and it was on a Palatine hill in 753 BC that the storied history of Rome began. From these mythical beginnings, Rome did not immediately rise to power but slowly built its foundations as a kingdom. For over 2 centuries, kings ruled Rome, some of whom were legendary figures credited with establishing its religious and political institutions. However, the regal era came to an abrupt end in 509 BC. The Romans, dissatisfied with the oppressive monarchy, especially under the harsh reign of the last king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, overthrew him and his family in a revolt. Now, with the last Roman king dethroned, a new chapter in Rome's history opened, the era of the Roman Republic. This wasn't just a shift in leadership, it was a complete overhaul of the political system, paving the way of an empire built on democracy and warfare. As the Republic grew, so did its ambitions. Rome expanded its influence through a combination of military might and strategic alliances. Conquests in Italy gave way to territories far beyond, as Rome clashed with Carthage and the Punic Wars, eventually dominating the Mediterranean. The transition to empire. Now, as the Roman Republic expanded, its political framework began to show signs of strain. Into this turbulent arena stepped Julius Caesar, a figure whose ambition would irrevocably transform Rome. Caesar, originally a military general, distinguished himself with astonishing victories and amassed significant loyalty among the troops. His conquests in Gaul were not just military triumphs, but a masterclass in leadership and strategy that elevated his status back in Rome. Caesar's return to Rome marked a pivotal turn in Roman history. In a bold move, he crossed the Rubicon River, effectively declaring war on the Senate and plunging Rome into civil conflict. This act of defiance declared that the old rules could no longer contain ambitions like this. After defeating the forces of Pompey, another formidable general and political leader, Caesar declared himself dictator for life. However, Caesar's grip on power was short-lived. In 44 BC, alarmed by his centralizing power and the threat he posed to the Republic's traditions, a group of senators assassinated him on the Ides of March. From this chaos emerged a new figure, Octavian, known later as Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar's adopted heir. After battling the last of his rivals in the wake of Caesar's death, Augustus emerged as an unchallenged ruler of Rome. In 27 BC, he cleverly transitioned from republic to empire. Unlike his predecessor, Augustus did not abolish the facade of the republic but transformed it from within. He retained the Senate while systematically reducing its power and introduced reforms that stabilized and centralized the administration. His rule marks the beginning of the Roman Empire, an era characterized by more than just expansive conquests. It was a period of profound administrative innovation and cultural renaissance. Under his reign, Rome experienced peace and prosperity, known as Pax Romana, setting a precedent for the emperors who would follow. During the Pax Romana, the Roman Empire reached its peak in terms of land area and population. And this stability allowed for several remarkable advancements in architecture, engineering, and law. The peace across the empire reduced internal conflicts and increased economic prosperity by enhancing trade routes and allowing a more fluid exchange of goods, culture, and knowledge between different parts of the empire. But then, by the end of the 3rd century, the Roman Empire faced mounting challenges that threatened its stability and effectiveness. The split of the empire. You see, it was during this tumultuous period the Emperor Diocletian made a groundbreaking decision. In 285 AD, he divided the Roman Empire into 2 parts, fundamentally altering its structure and administration. The sheer size and complexity of the empire drove Diocletian's decision. Governing the expansive territory, which stretched from the British Isles to the Middle East and North Africa, had become increasingly unwieldy. The logistical challenges, frequent border skirmishes, and internal rebellions called for a radical solution. Diocletian aimed to streamline administrative efficiency and enhance military responsiveness by splitting the empire. He established a tetrarchy, or rule of 4, creating 2 senior emperors, Augusti, and 2 junior emperors, Caesars, to govern the divided territories. The division resulted in 2 distinct entities, the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. The Western Empire, with its capital initially in Milan and later moved to Ravenna, was characterized by its vast, less urbanized territories, including Italy's Roman heartland. It faced significant military pressures from Germanic tribes and had a weaker economic base than its eastern counterpart. On the other hand, the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in Byzantium, later renamed Constantinople, was wealthier and more urbanized. This part of the empire benefited from established trade routes and closer proximity to the prosperous regions of the Near East and Egypt. The Eastern Empire was also heavily influenced by Greek culture, which was reflected in its administrative practices and societal norms. This division was intended as a temporary measure to address immediate concerns, but became a permanent state, highlighting the diverse challenges and needs within the empire. The Western and Eastern Roman empires would eventually follow very different trajectories. The weaker and more fragmented Western Empire would succumb to barbarian invasions and dissolve in 476 AD. The decline of the Western Roman Empire. As the sun began to set on the Roman Empire, the western half grappled with many crises that foreshadowed its eventual downfall. The decline was not sudden, but a slow burn, exacerbated by economic troubles, military defeats, and administrative challenges that eroded the foundations of this once formidable empire. The economic landscape of the Western Roman Empire was marked by severe instability. Rampant inflation, a debased currency, and heavy taxation weighed down the population. The economic strife was compounded by a decline in agricultural productivity and trade disruptions, which were often caused by ongoing conflicts and reduced security along the empire's vast borders. As the economy faltered, so did the ability of the state to maintain its military and administrative functions, leading to a vicious cycle of decline. Militarily, the Western Roman Empire faced relentless pressure from various non-Roman tribes and groups, commonly referred to as barbarians. These groups, including Visigoths, Vandals, and Huns, pushed into Roman territory, driven by their own migrations and the expansive pressure of other nomadic groups from the east. The Roman legions, once the masters of warfare, were stretched thin, underfunded, and increasingly reliant on these same barbarian groups as mercenaries, further compromising the integrity of the military. Administratively, the empire struggled with corruption and a bloated bureaucracy that failed to effectively manage its challenges. The sheer size of the empire made centralized control difficult, and local governors often wielded more practical power, sometimes acting more in their own interests than those of the empire. These troubles culminated in AD 476, a year often cited as the official end of the Western Roman Empire. In that year, Odoacer, a barbarian leader of Germanic origin and a former Roman ally, deposed the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus. Odoacer's ascension as the king of Italy marked a symbolic end to Roman authority in the West, in the beginning of a new era dominated by various barbarian kingdoms. While the Western Roman Empire crumbled under the weight of its own turmoil, the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire as it came to be known, thrived and endured for another 1,000 years. The Eastern Roman Empire. Centered around its capital in Constantinople, now modern-day Istanbul, the Byzantine Empire became a beacon of stability and cultural preservation when much of Europe was in disarray. The longevity of the Byzantine Empire can be attributed to several factors, including its strategic geographic location, which controlled key trade routes between Europe and Asia. This advantage allowed the empire to flourish economically. Moreover, the Byzantines developed a highly sophisticated administrative system that effectively managed the empire's diverse and often challenging territories. Culturally and historically, the significance of the Byzantine Empire is immense. It was a custodian of Roman law and Greek culture, which might have been lost to history if not for the Byzantine scholars who preserved and copied many ancient texts. This dedication to scholarship ensured that the ancient world's philosophical, scientific, and literary works were not forgotten. The Byzantines also made significant contributions to art, most notably in the form of iconic religious mosaics that adorn many of the empire's most famous churches. The Hagia Sophia. These artworks are not just beautiful, they're a window into the spiritual and cultural priorities of the Byzantine people. In addition, the Byzantine Empire played a crucial role in developing Christianity as a major world religion. The codification of Christian doctrine and the organization of the church were largely carried out under the auspices of Byzantine emperors, who saw themselves as God's representatives on earth. This integration of church and state helped stabilize and justify the emperor's authority, but it also had profound spiritual and cultural impact across the empire. So now, what if the Roman Empire had never fallen? How different do you think our world would look today? Share your thoughts and join the conversation below.